Good afternoon and welcome to UnitedTV. This is Kemal Erkan. We are back to our weekly live events. There were 2 weeks we were off. There were some other events that we were able to actually be part of. So back to reality. So we are here in our new settings. So we are still trying to make certain things better. So we'll see how things are going to work out. We still don't have a sponsor or anyone is funding us yet. So with the limited resources we have, we'll get better in time. So we are going to continue with the same format that we have. One of our business development resources is going to help me with questions, and then we'll go through the current items, current issues that we have in US and the global issues in terms of the changes with the Trump administration and other discussions that we have, which will have full impact on economy. So we'll start.
Yep. So as mentioned, we do have around 4 or 5 different topics to get to today. But before we actually dive into those, we're going to start with just what's been going on over those past 2 weeks. As we know, Kemal was out of the country traveling to our Turkey office. So Kemal, if you want to begin with your Turkey trip, any of the office updates that happened there, and also any notable updates outside of the office relating to Turkey news.
As most people already know, we do have an internal outsourcing operation in Turkey just for our business for US. So these trips are almost necessary at this point because we have so many employees there, so many employees here. When I go, I'm able to kind of get better insight and then also be a better support for those. Although we do a lot of things through Zoom and almost every day we are connected with them on a daily basis anyway. But these trips do help. I personally have some other responsibilities there, and with United Medical. Other than we were on one of the TV channels for updates from US, and that may become more like a regular reporting. It's going to be called Studio Delaware. So maybe once a month on Echo Turk TV channel will be updating Turkey and not only for our employees but for pretty much everyone there. So the other thing that's really important again for United Medical standpoint, this year, as many of you know, I am part of the Marmara Group Foundation. This is one of the most prestigious civil organizations in Turkey, and on a yearly basis we have an event called Eurasian Economic Summit. Right now we have, I believe, over 35 confirmed guests from different countries at the minister level, former prime ministers, and it's going to be a wonderful event, and United Medical is one of the sponsors this year other than my own contribution. It is going to be, we are going to be covering the healthcare related items as well as the energy. It's going to be an interesting event for us because it's going to be my first time. We are also trying to get one of our congresswomen, well, we have one, Sarah McBride or Lisa Rochester, to join the event as well. Haven't had any confirmation yet, but I'm hoping that we will be at least one will be joining us, hopefully.
Okay.
So,
and then just planning ahead, when do you think could be the next time you're back in Turkey?
It's going to be for the Eurasian Summit, and it is May 7 and 8, so I'll be there in the first and second week of May.
All right, perfect. All right, so we're now going to dive a little bit into these topics. As we mentioned, we're going to be covering the U.S. updates, obviously various news topics going on with the new administration. So one of the first areas that we're going to jump into here is the USAID, their disruptions and global consequences. So those who are not familiar, the USAID is the Agency for International Development. So to begin, if you could just give us kind of a snapshot of what's going on here with the USAID and why these disruptions matter so much?
So, um, we have been covering politics for a while now. Either we were just strictly looking from the political standpoint and also from the economic standpoint, pretty much trying to put an independent perspective of what's happening in US and in the world. So when the administration changes, one of the things that I always believe that countries like US wouldn't have as much changes as like other countries because we have a very well structured, well settled structure in place. So that is changing actually. So that is not the case anymore. So now, I don't know how many people have told me this. They always have this connection between me and Elon Musk because we talk about him a lot, and then we used to love him a lot, but now we are trying to kind of put a little bit distance, just because not because he's part of the Trump administration, just because some of the kind of exaggerated behavior that I'm gonna just call, where I'm like, okay, so that's not what we have seen for all these years, and all of a sudden there's a different personality came out, and it's I remember this with Tom Cruise, I think 10 or 15 years ago, where it used to be cool to like Tom Cruise, and then all of a sudden when he got crazy and then jumping on the seats when on one of the talk shows, then everyone was kind of trying to put a distance on him. So I kind of see something similar in the today's landscape, and there are still a lot of things that's not answered. Now, going back to the actual question, because they're kind of related, why these changes are important. I think U.S., regardless of who's running, we need to make this decision whether or not we want to get involved or not. Right? These USAID, why did we even start doing them? Right? So we can just close all the doors and all the outlets and then just stay where we are, and then we don't have to have anything to do with the rest of the world. Well, that's not the reality. Well, we want something from those those countries, and then you can't really get into that and then not get your hands dirty. So that means you have to be participating in certain things in order to support those. We just need to really make this decision. Like when you have 78 different military bases, can you not get involved? Can you just stay away from everything else? That's not possible. Now, one of the biggest Air Force bases is in Turkey. So it's huge, but it's not there. We are not there for Turkey. We are there for our own benefits. So, well, when you are there, you have to get involved because it's not like so isolated that you can just keep everything so separate. So, and this is not just with Turkey. There's Germany, there's Japan, there's South Korea. It's 78 total different countries. Well, Turkey, for example, they have now military base, I believe, in Djibouti, right? The country, the one next to Ethiopia. I think Djibouti. So the Somalia, they have Air Force military bases now. Why are we really trying to help them? No. There is a benefit for Turkey to be there. So then that's why they're there. So when you get involved like that, some of these things, yes, they look kind of looking at how they are being spent is one thing, but cutting them off without a good plan, I don't know that's going to get us where we want to be, because there's only 4 years. And in that 4 years, you may remember before the election and right after the election, I thought Trump administration was going to be in a really good place to make a lot of things, perhaps improve a lot of things, where Trump already has 4 years and 4 years break, and now he's back, and this should be an opportunity for everyone, not like trying to take the grudge on the system. So I'm hoping that there will be some balance at some point. Now, when you look at I know you have questions, so I don't want to kind of interrupt your flow, but related to this, if you are going to get into the global where national security and why there are issues, we can actually go with that.
Yeah. So that's actually the order we're actually planning to go in. So as you mentioned, they were touching on national security and kind of some of these vulnerable communities out there, as you mentioned, some of these countries that people maybe not even have heard of. So the question following with this is, how do you see these funding or policy roadblocks affecting both the U.S. national security as well as those vulnerable communities that we just before mentioned?
Well, that's kind of like part of the issue that we are seeing now, especially with, again, when there's unlimited funds, how that's being spent, that's a concern. But how that's being monitored is another concern, right? So if we don't have an after plan and just cut everything off, like, are we really gonna, do that? Like, one of the reasons that we are in a peaceful society, supposed to be, is because we have a system in place where we actually have, we cover people's health insurance. 30% of this state, the state of Delaware, is on Medicaid. So if you don't provide that, how are you going to actually walk on the street, or how are you going to drive, or how are you going to actually be in social places? So you can't really just cut off all these things without a good plan. So when I think taking extreme actions is always going to backfire. That's at least what I believe in. So now, no one is saying that take people in and put them in the 5-star hotel in New York. It's $1,200 a night, and then fund those from the government funds. That's criminal. So, right? But there's that balance.
Threshold, sure.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, as you're maybe hinting towards it there, could this reduced engagement by the U.S. open the door for other global powers to then kind of fill in that aid vacuum? So as you're saying, if the U.S. is adjusting its, current standing, is somebody else going to step in and take that spot as an opportunity, or
Well,
is just a natural fill?
that's already happening in Africa. So who's the biggest investor in Africa? China. So you don't have to whisper, you can say it's China. Why? Because there was an open market. Who's the second biggest investor in Ethiopia?
Probably China.
No, they're the first. The second biggest one is Turkey. Why? Is because there's an open spot there. So now, I think you and we covered this back in 2022. China built this African Union building for, I believe, $200 million. Remember that?
Yep.
And then what did they do? They actually have all the servers were being backed up in China, and then because they wired the place, so they give $200 million building. In return, they got all the information that they have. But there's an open market there. There's an opportunity. When you leave these, when you are going to, of course, invite other countries to take that role. And that's what's happening in many places right now. So this also, especially with the energy issue and those limited minerals that's definitely needed for supporting today's technology, you have to be in control. So if you want to cut off $40 million aid for some African countries, but then if you are making trillions and you are risking that, I would question that. So, and I know Trump is smart enough to know this better than I, and Elon Musk definitely benefits from this. Remember the one we covered with the battery, lithium battery for
in the Congo.
For the cars? Congo is the country that you have to have some control there in order to get what you need. So again, you have to get dirty. Not dirty in a way that I didn't mean that in the in a negative way. So if you are gonna need something from them, you have to help. So that's in the sense of that. I think that's what has to happen.
I see. So I think kind of related to this, also big in the news now is the Department of Government Efficiency. So I think
Is it?
yeah, Daj. I think this is the most news coverage that this particular department's had in quite some time. So if you're able to walk us through the idea, basically what is the functionality, purpose of the Department of Government Efficiency? What is it meant to do? And why is there so much controversy currently happening in the news surrounding it?
So this is the organization supposed to be overseeing all these efficiencies with the government spending. So the government spends a lot of money, and where do we get those funds?
Taxpayers.
From the taxpayers. So we have right to know. Now I can tell you, when you live in this country, this may like now, especially going back and forth with Turkey, getting to know the system back then, because it's been 26 years that I haven't been there, like physically full time. Of course, going there for other purposes is one thing, but doing business is a total different thing. They don't pay taxes, so they don't. So the guy drives a $600,000 SUV, and his tax record shows zero. Okay, this is not. I'm not exaggerating. This is the fact. So, and it's not one person. Okay, so now we pay taxes here, and when I tell them this, they really don't really understand how can you pay that much tax? I pay 39% of my income as a tax. No buts and ifs or anything. 39% goes. So when you pay taxes, Yep. What's your percentage? 25, 28? Something. Then you have right to know how that money is being spent.
Exactly.
Right? So that's what the efficiency is. So, well, if you are actually sponsoring some crazy ideas and some fantasy in a way, then of course we have right to know what that is, and there has to be the transparency, and we have to stop. So again, still they need to be a little bit more careful, but I think there's a lot of waste. So now this is not confirmed, so I don't want to kind of well, let's see actually, because it's pretty bad. If it's true, it's bad. So let me see if I can find it very quickly for you. So it is just so crazy how this money is being spent. So all right, let's see. It's set up. 1 second. Did I send you that?
And this is, just so everyone's aware, this is large amounts of money. It's not by any means small, insignificant side funds or purchases, so to speak. I think we're touching on like the Sesame Street one.
Well, there's Sesame Street in Iraq for 22 or 40 million. Some like I think condoms for Hamas for 100 million. Can it be really true? Well, perhaps it is. And if it's true, then well, we are in trouble. How can that be okay? Like, how can we allow that to happen? So, because of that, I think we kind of need to know those. So, are they exaggerating some of these? I think so. Because if that's the case, like, these were probably happening in 2016 to 2020. It's not a new. These are not new operations, and so I'm sure it's some of this is going to be extremely helpful for us, knowing what we are paying, how much we are paying, why we are paying all these. So, but I'm now a little bit stuck to this. Let me just find it very quickly. So it should be, it's on my bookmark. So, and all right, let's see. One more round.
Maybe I can
Hmm?
just
Go ahead.
toss this other question out there as you're looking for it, just
Mhm.
because obviously it's on the same topic. But the question we have here is, what specific metrics would we use to judge whether or not the DOGE is actually making government more efficient or just redistributing the inefficiency of this spending?
So, well, actual findings, right? So, what's going to make that is actual findings. So, if we have this much waste in place, making a significant impact, positive impact in terms of, um, what's being cut, as long as they make those available to us quickly, then it's fine. Um, so, so I find it now. So, I'm going to tell you how crazy these things are. How much we spend in with these stupid places. So, like sponsoring or funding some transgender study in with teenagers in some South American country, that's a criminal. That's criminal. That's bad. So we can be, if these are true, this cannot happen. So, and if it's not happening, if someone is lying to us, then we need to know that as well. But the thing is, I think it's happening. Why are we giving 260 million to the Soros Foundation? 260 million. And then the way that we understand up to this point, if he was using his own money, well, he's funded by the US government, apparently. And he got the medal before he left. Why? Right? So that means these things, my suspicion is, are correct. These things are happening. So the measure, again, is going to be basically just sharing with us what it was and what it is today. And just like we do it with every other data, very simple. So we spent 2 trillion and now we are spending 1 trillion. And these are the projects. Make it some public portal available for everyone to access. And remember, we used to have that US that calculator. It's almost like a real time. Make it available. So that shouldn't be that difficult. So, but if you are, there's like one guy these days, I'm kind of fighting on Twitter with him. He constantly attacks Turkey and President Erdogan. And I look at his institution, like where he works. It's a non-profit, but they're not putting who's funding them. They're not transparent about who's funding the organization. So I'm sure they are getting money from so many different places. Why can't it be open if it's a nonprofit? Right? So this is that simple. So just make a public portal and then everyone can see, whoever wants to see it. Now, public, we don't want to, I'm not going to worry about people misunderstanding. I'm just going to say the way it is. Public also is not so smart either. So I met an individual who's 30 years old, lives in Delaware, and he did some work for me, not under United Medical. He doesn't know who Lisa Rochester is. So the first African American senator in Delaware, he's like, I have no idea who that is. He's African American, 30 years old. Okay. So that means most of the public really don't care, even if you make that portal available. But you and I, we can check and at least see what's happening, and we can keep them honest.
Yes. Sounds like the transparency there is the key thing, just
Mhm.
to have that availability if desired,
Right.
as you're mentioning. Shifting into our next topic here is going to be regarding the economic shifts and tariffs. So again, another news topic that we're hearing a lot about all these taxes going on, importing on these imports that are coming in. So keep hearing about these new tariffs. Can you clarify how they directly affect day-to-day expenses for the average American here?
So these are again all political maybe games, I'm gonna say. So the anger is sweet. We wanna sometimes just act on the moment and then just go after our anger, our feelings. But when you look at the big picture, for example, I'm going to answer your question, but I want to give some analogy. When the taxes increased on individuals and the organizations, the total tax income of the country goes down. So there's that really good balance where you still want people to work, but you don't want to increase it to a point where people or companies don't want to do more anymore, right? So this is kind of this same analogy applies to this. So when you are increasing tariffs for these countries where we do business, let's look at China. So we are 29%, I believe, of China's trade. So, well, why do we buy from China? So that's the first question that you need to ask yourself. I mean, not just you, but everyone, because it's less expensive. Why are we buying it if we have the same thing here at the same cost? Because it's twice more expensive. So now you are gonna make this less expensive things more expensive for us, and then because when you are increasing that, what China is gonna do? They're going to increase their base prices. So then what we end up paying here, let's say we buy something for $100. So there's 10% extra. Now that's 110. Let's say that costs, $100 is the cost, and then they are selling this to us with 20% profit margin. So now you increase their fees, and that 100 becomes 120. In order to keep their 20% profit margin, what people are going to do here, we are going to increase prices because now it's going to cost us more. So, well, who's going to pay for it? We are going to pay for it. So, from the beginning, if it was already, equal or even buying from there or here, we would have all of these here. So when you play with these, it goes back to our discussion with BRICS. Why BRICS happened is because US use the global currency as a financial sanction and it was out of proportion. When you go out of control and when you don't balance these, then the consequences is going to be either there will be a different alternative or there will be less business, and therefore we are going to pay more. So the only reason we have an office in Turkey is because we couldn't find people to work at twice more than what we used to pay 10 years ago for the same position. There's no one. So where do I pay taxes? Here, right? So doing business there helps us to pay taxes. If I can find people, then I can grow the business. That's that simple. So this is going to hurt everyone at the end of the day. But I think, including countries here and countries that we trade with, but then also it's going to have an impact on us. Unless you can make something just think about it. And if let me know if you disagree with this. Because of the Turkey office, I have to go there 4 times a year, 2 weeks. Now, for someone who doesn't travel and who doesn't do those trips, it may look a lot kind of attractive. It's not. After the second month, it's not that easy to adjust and go back and forth. It's door to door 20-hour trip. It's a lot of things you have to do. It's outside of your routine. I'm away from home. Well, there are advantages. Of course, I see family there, but I'm not here. This is my home. So um, let's look at this one where if I'm able to do the same thing at same cost here, why do I need to have that 4 extra trips?
Mhm.
I can just go there for 10 days once a year and then be done with it. I can just do my family business then, but then I don't have to travel. It's not something that we love doing. So that's what I'm trying to say. Because the alternative is twice costly and no more people that you can hire.
Mhm. There's
So
that burden built in.
burden, yeah. And then this is the same thing that's going to happen with this. And that's why some of these things, I think we have to be more careful. And I'm expecting a little bit better from the Trump administration uh, because he knows these balances much better. And then, all these things, I mean, just look at what's happening with and we can get into it later on, but with the Russian-Ukraine peace talk, it happens in Saudi Arabia. Well, a country where women is not able to drive. That's everything against what we believe in this country. And then we are having a peace talk in there. Why? Because they are giving us $1 trillion investments. If we need that investments, and if you go out there and then tell people that, hey, I got 1 trillion investment promise from this country, how can you actually uh, change that balance against our own country here? So that's why I don't buy some of these things where, oh, we have to do all this. Well, you're asking the guy to give you 1 trillion. So,
Mhm. Right. There's always some type of offsetting. Uh,
right.
Something's built into it. Another economic discussion topic here, obviously something that's been tracked for quite some time, is just that of inflation, how you see it trending in the short term, and then also potential impacts on small businesses and or consumer spending.
Well, it's going to impact everyone. Now, now again, um, let's look at this in a way where we were able to maybe encourage people to do more business here. It has to be attractive in order to do that. You cannot really force people to do it if it's going to cost more, right? So if we are able to, let's say there's this untapped area where we are able to actually get more business, and then US owned people are employed for those, then yeah, that's great. But is that the case? No. I'm telling you that we cannot find people to work. I'm not saying that no one, but it's like when we used to be able to hire, 10 people in 1 month, that goes to one. So if these people are available and they are able to work, where are they? So you follow me on this, right? So
And do
of
you
course
think
it's
it's, I was gonna say, sorry to cut you, do you think it's quality of applicants these days, or is it just you're saying that
both,
that desire of,
both.
okay.
The desire is I'm not gonna blame the generations. So, but although now I'm old enough to do this, so I'm on that other side of the box. But it's people have jobs or they are okay with whatever they are doing. So of course, the pandemic changed a lot of things for us. But what we are offering, I know for a fact, what we had and what we are offering is a day and night, and it's still not able to get people. So now, don't we have inflation already in place, right? We talk about this. I mean, we were not used to this, and we have that. We have the interest rates and the impact of the interest rates. We covered this in a couple different sessions. So something goes from 3% to 7.5, 8%, and you are trying to buy a house. You are going to pay, was it 60% when we did the study, more for the same house on the mortgage for the same amount.
Oh yeah, oh, interesting.
Well, how is that going to happen? So,
Tricky.
and that's why, unless you show me the alternative, and the alternative is, I can tell you, if it costs us the same, or even if it costs us maybe 20% more, to do the business what we have for here in Turkey, I would just close the Turkey office right away. It's not. So how can you tell Apple or those giant IT companies to close their offices in India when that's going to be 12 to 20 times more cost to do business here,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of like the supply and demand, like.
Yeah. So to follow that up, actually, it's branched into the audience focused perspectives, but one of the questions there kind of saying for viewers who are maybe worried about job security or these rising, prices in whether it's grocery or gasoline or your everyday expenses, I guess advice on how would they manage that? What could they be doing to
Well,
better prepare?
I think we are going to wait and see, honestly, because I want to be wrong in so many ways when I actually criticize the administration. We did this with other administration before. I mean, if it's right or wrong, we are going to actually try to look at it if this is going to help us. If things, right now, to me, things are kind of like unknown. So I'm hoping that Trump knows something better than I, and when he does something, it's going to actually help. Now, when he said we need to be in control of the Panama Canal, like that was a good move. You like it or not, it's a good move for US because it helps us. And Greenland, we definitely need to be in control of that place. That's a good move. But when you say I'm gonna make it more expensive for us to get these things by penalizing them, yes, we are going to get more money. But what if they increase the proportionate amount and then they still make the same amount? Whatever we are making on one hand, people are going to pay more to buy them. Therefore, these day-to-day, what's going to happen is going to be more expensive. So, but I think in 6 months, I would say by June, we'll probably see how these things are going to work. Now, one of the things that we also have seen is the administration now uses these almost, and the other one did it too. Again, they all do it from their own angle, so from their own perspectives. So, like when we said we are going to do this with Mexico and Canada, then we said that we are going to do it, and then all of a sudden there's a 30-day extension, and then with that threat that we have put out there, they said they promised to invest on the border security. So that was a good return. But going through that process and decision may not be the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But forcing them, like when I was on the Turkish channel, Turkish TV the other day, I was telling them, and they kind of missed that whole point. Our border with Mexico is better protected than Canada because Mexican government, every time something comes here, any supply, they have to do almost 80% audits. They have to check whatever is coming here, 80%. So things still are happening, but guess what's happening from Canada? None. They don't audit them. They don't actually open the boxes. They don't check what's in there. They don't open the containers. It's I think it was 5 or 6%, very low number. So what happens? A lot of things were coming actually not from Mexico but from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Fentanyl is one of them, the drugs, and other things were coming from Canada. So not from Mexico. So now if Canada doesn't actually invest on the border security to protect us here, and they don't do their job, that's a problem. So that's now by using this kind of at a limited level already paid off, but going through the whole thing may not.
Definitely. As you said, a few months into it, you can see kind of how these things play out with some actual results. Do have a bonus follow-up our personal insight question category here. So kind of going back to one of our first topics with the USAID. Says from your experience, what's one real world example that shows just how vital the USAID programs can be? So again, that's the Agency for International Development. So if you had any example off the top of your head, or
This is more with what's happening with EU.
No, this was related to the USAID disruptions and those global consequences. Just if there is, a real world example of that.
In terms of the cutting these, well, again, the influence is what we are going to lose, right? The
Right.
soft power is, you cannot really undermine the soft power. What soft power is, I'll give you an example. So Turkey opened their borders to Syrian refugees for more than 10 years. Okay. Now, you'll see where I'm going with this. Now they took the Assad regime down. I think it was more 13 years maybe. So now there's a new administration there with the people who were actually who were forced to leave Syria, right? Because Turkey had the most number of people, they not only just kept them in the refugee camps, but they also allowed them to participate and assimilate in Turkey. They went to colleges, they went to schools. So now almost 10 cabinet members in Syria, they have done their undergrad in Turkey. So this doesn't mean that they are Turkey's agent. This means that they have a good relationship with Turkey. They probably appreciate what they have done, what we have done for them in that time. So this is a soft power that you cannot buy this with money. And the US has that already in many countries. Like when you go to South Korea, and I haven't gone there, but my couple of really close friends are from. It's all US. So if you stop some of these things around the world, the influence and the culture and what we are able to do today, that's all that's going to be impacted.
Mm-hmm.
So can we afford that? I don't think so.
And then our final topic here, as you were kind of hinting towards that, regarding the European and the U.S. tension, and also related to that, Turkey's role or Turkey's limited role, as they were previously more involved in some of these, you mentioned, peace talks or even just relation or suggestions of compromises and what can be solution based. Where do you see that update kind of
Well,
that tension?
So one of the things, and I know Dr. Erkan is probably here, and if he's listening, one of the things that he and we always talk, and then I remember talking these with you, hypocrisy is so out of control. This is not just with countries, this is not just with this society or that. I think all over, from the individual level to the countries, there's this full hypocrisy and double standards. Okay. Now, this war that we have today in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, we covered this in so many different places, sessions. Our former First Lady was in the soup kitchen in Ukraine to support the military there. That was so crazy, right? In the meantime, today what's happening is the opposite. And the country didn't change, right? It's us, United States. So what Turkey has done, throughout the entire time, they were able to keep their distance almost same between EU, Russia, US, and NATO. So all these are different entities, and President Erdogan was able to actually manage that, and it requires a lot of experience and vision. Now, he had the peace talk and then peace agreement actually in 2020, before things got out of control. And first thing was European Union didn't want that to go through. And now they're trying to have a peace talk with Ukraine and Russia, and Zelensky is not part of it. And it's happening in Saudi Arabia. And in the meantime, Zelensky was in Turkey. Now, I ask you if you have seen any coverage of that this week, and you did not, right? So Zelensky was in Turkey. He was the guest of President Erdogan. So how can you actually have a peaceful, meaningful outcome of this peace agreement if you don't have all these parties involved, and the most importantly, someone who's key to manage all these crises without hurting the relationships with these, and then without losing the trust, and you don't include them because you don't want them to get any return on what we are trying to get from Ukraine. Now, Ukraine, we give them almost 360 billion, and then Zelensky says that we give them only 70 million. So these are all factual. So we are it's news. So then we want those returns back. So then we probably won't include other countries, and it's not going to work. So you may try to get more by being aggressive and greedy. The thing is, in the long term, it's going to hurt the relationships. So I think Trump should really take the opportunity with President Erdogan to work with this issue because Zelensky, we didn't like him from the beginning. So many different issues that we had with him, and still have so many. I think he's a huge trouble. But at the end of the day, it needs to be over, and then it's still happening, and hopefully, maybe by March, things will settle, and we'll see how it goes.
As we wind down here, if you just had any closing remarks on any of the aforementioned topics, or anything outside that we haven't had a chance to touch on.
So the one of the cutting on expenses spending from the government is healthcare related issues. Now, not everything that we hear is what's happening, but there's some truth where when the funds are not going to be available for Medicaid, I want young people, and I have two of you in this room, to remember that in order to have a peaceful society, you have to have certain standards for even those who are who have no financial means, and that means if it means that we need to pay a little bit more taxes to keep the peace in place, that's what needs to happen. But when you start actually playing with Medicaid, I'm not saying that you should be paying Social Security to a 140-year-old person. I'm not saying that. So I don't want to mix the apples and oranges. Those, whoever allowed that to happen under their watch, and if it's a lot of money, definitely they should be turned into the legal system. But when you look at the Medicaid population, this is a vulnerable population. They already have financial issues. They already have social issues. Social determinant of health is something that we covered for 4 years now. You are part of our case conferences on a daily basis. You see what happens with these patients. When you take the Medicaid away from these people or limit them, that's going to become a very big issue for a lot of us. So hopefully, I want kind of Trump and Elon Musk to calm down and just take their time before they make unreasonable changes, to be more careful so then people don't get these anxieties. And I'm not talking about myself. So a lot of people out there, they have issues with some of them are right, some of them are not. We just want to make sure that we are finding a balance. And that's what I'm hoping that Trump administration will get at some point.
Very good. As we're looking forward to the future, we do have some guests confirmed, and other ones that we're still sorting out dates for. I'm not sure if you want to touch on just who those people were and where they're from.
So we have to reschedule Sima Verma. So she is, I believe, end of March. Now, for those who may not really understand how difficult to get her, she's huge. So when she was in charge of CMS, her budget was 1.5 trillion. That's 50% larger than Turkey's GDP. So getting her and not getting last minute cancellation is tough, but they promised us that it's going to be happening in the fourth week of March.
Yep.
Now, and I also got another email from them, and her team was asking on her behalf for some other projects with us. So I'll make sure that she's here for that time. Now, we are now opening our horizons in different areas. So we are bringing two college university presidents, and the first one is going to be Dr. Tony Allen, and he is the president of Delaware State University. He's going to be with us next week. Then we have John Carney as a mayor. He's coming back this time as a mayor on the 7th. And on the 14th of March, we have the president of Deltec, Mark Baynard. He's going to be with us. And also another interesting thing that we are going to have on the 28th of February, one of our patients from our bariatric program is going to be with us in the studio. We appreciate her being available and making the trip. So we'll be able to talk to her about what's happening with her process after the bariatric surgery. And then I'll probably cover some of those with Dr. Erkan's session. So we have a full schedule coming up. We invested a little bit on this studio. So Ethan is doing a really good job. And I know the Turkey team, Ali and John, they have put in a lot of effort with the new streaming software. And hopefully, things are just going to get better from where we are. So, well, that's all we have for today. Dr. Erkan is probably waiting for me, and 2:58, right on time. So we'll see you next week, same time at 2 p.m. Thank you.